I want to go to Bret Baier right now, a special report. Bret, the significance of these remarks today and the former president immediately dismissing a woman who said he barely knew. What do you make of all this?
Well, Neil, good afternoon. I think this was as compelling testimony as we've heard on Capitol Hill in many, many years. It was very revealing about that day. This is a witness who had direct contact with the major players, including being right there next to the former president, as he's president, on that day, January 6th, on the ellipse, and she quotes him. Saying to get rid of the magnetometers and let the people with weapons that the Secret Service was very concerned about through, because he wanted to fill up the area. And he said that they could all march up to Capitol Hill. Now, obviously, there's a lot of focus, and the committee is focused on pointing to what the president said about you need to fight like hell for your country. They don't often, and they haven't yet, played the soundbite where he says you're going to march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. But the description, Neil, of what happens in the Beast, the limo, that he demands that he be driven up to Capitol Hill, and the Secret Service agent says, no, you can't. We have to go back to the West Wing. And that description, as told to her from the agent and the White House counsel, and what she describes inside the White House about his anger and throwing plates and his food up against the wall after the Attorney General tells the Associated Press that he does not believe there's enough evidence to overturn any state's votes, is significant because she's in the room. And that's what is so compelling about today.
I'm sure many of the former president's defenders, though, she wasn't in that car. She wasn't in the Beast, the president's car, with the Secret Service agent, which would lead one to think the committee wants to talk to that agent or agents, right?
100%. And we saw former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney said before this is over, we will likely see that agent in testimony, as well as Pat Cipollone and perhaps Mark Meadows in some sort of a testimony. There was this redirect from Liz Cheney saying you then were in a room with both of them, the agent and Pat Cipollone, where they talked about this incident, correct? And she then relayed those specifics. My point in saying all of this is where does this go? The committee is clearly laying this groundwork that the president was trying to force a takeover of that electoral process, and perhaps laying a groundwork for seditious conspiracy about the electoral count. And whether they can get there legally or not, it is still damaging testimony to listen to the details of that day.
You know, I'm thinking of the agent, if this is all true, and refusing the president's demands that they go to the Capitol. He's obviously looking at the president's safety and not stirring a hornet's nest. We can only surmise that. But the president was fighting him on that. That's a surreal scene in and of itself. But yeah. I'm just wondering, you know, the temper part, and we knew all those aspects of the former president and his frustration with the process here. But did anything change with her remarks today, with Hutchisons' remarks today? Now, she had testified, as it was raising with Aisha some time ago, and then obviously amplified this today, best I could tell. But the significance of this day compared to the 5 other hearings.
Well, first of all, I think there was another behind-the-scenes deposition with her after she got new lawyers. The first lawyers were part of the Trump crew, and these new lawyers, whatever she decided to do it again, and there was another deposition which led to the sound bites that were played today. I do think that they are, some of the compelling testimony was the early days from January 2nd to January 6th, where she is a part of conversations. Rudy Giuliani says it's going to be a big, big day. Mark Meadows said it could get real, real bad. She remembers hearing about Proud Boys and Oath Keepers being a part of this, and that there were concerns about weapons, and then what she hears that day. I think it does all methodically build a case, but most headline grabbing is the description of the president's actions. And I think that we hadn't heard that before. We've obviously heard the former Attorney General, Bill Barr, say what he said about his anger, the former president's anger. And we should note that on Truth Social, President Trump has said this is not true. None of it is true. And Cassidy Hutchinson is obviously under oath on Capitol Hill, and you have to take that all into consideration.
But she's hearing this secondhand, is she not?
She is, from a Secret Service agent and the White House counsel, but she's in the room as they are relaying to each other what happened inside the Beast, and then she sees the fallout from whatever was happening in the dining room. I think more compelling is her direct knowledge of the conversations that were happening beforehand. I'm
just curious what you make of this. I mean, obviously it is a president who seems very unhinged, very angry, furious. The whole process he had hoped to stall or stop is moving on. Now we have made, with this as a backdrop, a reason to believe maybe this was among the reasons why he waited so long to respond to it. But clearly the committee is now going to chase a new avenue here, right?
I think so. I think there are other hearings to come that lay out more about that day. We saw our colleagues, a couple of them in text messages that we knew and we've reported on here, saying the president needs to get out there and get this to stop. And there were many other voices saying that day. And I think what the next hearing is going to be is the tick-tock of what exactly happens that day and the hours afterwards. Something that Cassidy Hutchinson testified to, but probably more of that. I think there's a lot of questions about security that haven't obviously come up yet. Neil, they promised that it will come up in this hearing, and what was the president agreed to or not, or Nancy Pelosi. But today was a big day as far as this hearing, and it did deliver for the surprise witness that they promised.
So finally, on that point about the need for security and all of that, if we're to take her at face value, Hutchinson at face value, that there were concerns about whether this could get very raucous, if not outright violent, a few days ahead of the approaching January 6th election certification with the electoral votes. And obviously Republicans are going to want to hear if these warnings were relayed to Nancy Pelosi and others. So that we just don't know, right? We don't know, and we don't know if this committee is going to go down that road or go down it significantly. That's why it would have been good to have a Jim Jordan or somebody cross-examining or asking these questions. That's not how this committee is operating, and we've put that out there, that's always a caveat in how this is, a scripted play sort of this testimony, but it doesn't discount or somehow diminish the significance of this testimony today. Bret Baier, thank you very, very much for that. Bret Baier, special report.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.